Hello folks, JT here. This is just one of my model railway ramblings involving my adventure with airbrushes really. Most of my time is making models of railway buildings, layouts, trains, and for that I make kits. And this is what I normally do. This is a white metal kit made by one of the best O-gauge 7mm scale kit manufacturers ever, and that was ABS Models by Adrian Swain, who sadly is no longer with us. His kits were taken over by DJ Parkins, but sadly that gentleman has died as well, so I don't know what's happened to them. But they are wonderful kits. They are very, very accurate. They're probably the most accurate Great Western Railway wagon kits you can get. They have spring buffers, except you've got to assemble them. They're quite crude. The buffer ends actually are drawing pin heads, so they're slightly overscale for O-gauge, but they do prevent when you're shunting buffer locking. Anyway, this one here is what I've ended up trying to achieve, and this one has been airbrushed with my update method. It's a white metal kit, so you need an etch primer for that, and I used a lacquer based one, that from SMS Models, and on top of that I've airbrushed with Humbrol grey, number 67, tank grey, which is pretty close to Great Western grey, and certainly matches all the ready to run products that you get these days. And this one was using 0.3 needle in an airbrush, as opposed to my previous one at 0.5. It's been airbrushed or finished in preparation for transfers by using Johnson's Pledge Clear floor wax, which is an acrylic clear coat. So that's going to have transfers put on next. And then it will have another coat of matte coat, really, matte colouring, just to get rid of the shine. The old way for me was this is another ABS kit, lovely kit. This is a almost finished one. This was done in enamel paint, and the grey is a little bit darker from Precision Models. Again, I use the Pledge Clear in preparation for applying transfers. And I think these are the dreaded HMRS press fix transfers, I think. And this is now ready for a finished grey coat on top, or a matte coat rather, on top. Again, that's another ABS model, super model. So that's sort of my background for wagon kits for airbrushing. But I also make building kits. These are from laser cut MDF and wood kits. Okay, obviously the brickwork was touched up with by brush, but these are the kind of things I use an airbrush for, and touch up with a brush if necessary. I try to do most things with an airbrush these days. One other. This is an Intentio Models permanent way hut, representing one of the concrete structures that most railways used from the 1920s onward. On this one, I used a sort of enamel concrete colour that I actually brush painted on, and then I sprinkled ordinary ground black pepper on top to give it a concrete effect. I think it's quite realistic, and it's certainly a method not to be sneezed at. So that's, and I airbrush buildings and locos as well. And locos up until now, this is not a kit built loco. This is one of Daypole's Sentinel shunters, which the Great Western had a couple. They certainly had number 12, I think, but the model was from Daypole was the Airbrush model, which was in a ghastly bright green livery. So using an airbrush and an enamel, rail match enamel green, this was stripped down and resprayed, number plates added, number added to the buffer beam just to sort of Great Westernize it. Normally my models have DCC chips put in, but this one's still waiting. I tried a different manufacturer because I quite like the sound it produced, but it wasn't up to O gauge running, and I blew the chip, so so that's got to go back to the workhouse soon. Anyway, back to airbrushing. My primary reason or choice of airbrushes in the last couple of years has always been an airbrush has got to look really cool. So with that in mind, I'm going to go through a list of manufacturers' airbrushes that I choose for various reasons, but they've all got to look cool. In this day and age, you can't much cooler with chrome finish with a show of brass. And this one is a newcomer to the market. This is I know I did a little video on Airgoo gear. This is the Airgoo Phantom, and the reason I choose this one is because it's got, like all the airbrushes I choose, it's got a self-centering nozzle, as you can see. This is beautifully made with steel, I think, this one, and it has a PTFE seal, as most of them do now, and it has a PTF seal in the airbrush as the needle bearing, and there's a PTF seal inside the bottom of the removable cup, which means this airbrush is solvent resistant. And one of my choices, I now airbrush with enamels, lacquers and acrylics, so I need them to be able to do all three. Okay, the other, because I'm now, just get that back in there, because I'm getting on in years and my hands are not, after I've made one of the kits or a loco kit, my hands get really tired and stiff, so the trigger action on my airbrushes need to be very light, and this is very light when it comes out of the box, but you've got a needle tensioner here, which you can make it even lighter or stiffer should you need to. This like gear comes with two needles, a 0.3 and a 0.2. This is set up for the 0.3, and now, just out of interest, because of the shape of that seal, he says, I actually, when I have finished using it, I actually store it with the nozzle cap loose or undone a bit, so it relieves the pressure on the seal, because as you probably know, PTFE seals are not like rubber seals. They don't bounce back into shape, and over time they get squashed and stay squashed. Okay, let me just set this one up and I'll show you how it works. So just tighten that up, pop the needle in, give it a twiddle, tighten it up, put it back on. Okay, this is a fantastic airbrush. Cost me $79.99 free postage, I think. So before I sort of kick off with it, the other thing that I need with airbrushes is I like them to atomize paint really well, and this one atomizes paint at low and high PSI settings, and I often run airbrushing for O gauge models at 15 to 18 PSI, sometimes lower than that. What I hope to do with some of my models is to learn to do some weathering, and for that I want to use an airbrush for that. So I've selected airbrushes that will achieve that and are easy to use. What I actually do prefer on airbrushes is a fixed paint cup, because I think it makes life a lot easier if you're doing away with the seal to have to worry about on a cup, because eventually they'll wear out and you've got to replace them. But this one comes with two size cups, Anyway, more ado, I've actually made up a mix here of well, it's only something easy. It's FW ink, and it's diluted, about 10 drops diluted with a bit of IPA and distilled water. I mean, I probably could put it in neat, but I thought I'd do it this way to make everything equal across airbrushes. So we will. Oh, I know what we haven't done. But never mind, because what we'll do is we will use the Serenair on this one, and for that, because the Serenair doesn't have an air filter, a moisture trap, this airbrush comes with one as part of the purchase, really. So all we've got to do is put the quick connect on the end of there, connect up this lovely little moisture trap that comes with the airbrush. Quite neat, really. It does actually make it easier to hold. And then I will set up on my Serenair, which I've just switched on. Actually, no, I don't want that one. It's got an extra bolt on the end. We'll take it off this one. And this one probably. Some of these connectors leak air a bit. Anyway, so we will. The Serenair is set at 15 psi. Now I actually don't know how accurate that is, to be honest. Let me just pop that in there for a sec. Get the top off this. So here we go. Just a few drops in there. I don't need much because I have used this airbrush just to test it out to make sure it was working. But let's see now. This is on 15 psi, so we'll just see, very responsive, very fine lines, as you can see. I hope not the best of cameras for this, really. Let me just switch off the light, actually. See if that's better. Might be. So I'll go. Anyway, as you can see, that's such a thin hairline for a 0.3 that, believe me, that is thinner than a baby's hair. That is terribly thin. So thin you can't see it. Okay, but it does atomise the paint well at low psi. Okay, now I'll put it up to, I think the next one is 17 psi. No, that's gone up too far. 17 psi. So, probably a little better. I'm sorry, this isn't very good, is it, really? Let's try doing it flat down, see what happens there. Trouble is, with the camera I'm using here, I can't actually alter the focus or alter the distance. But this is just like the gear. It's brilliant for detail work. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And the trigger is just so soft and gentle. We'll turn that over and we'll just pop it up, pop the pressure up to, the next one is 19. We'll go up to 20. That's 19. We'll go up to 21 psi. And remember, this is very, very thin ink. You can do dots a lot with this, and I'm actually not touching the paper. I'm at least 5mm away, and that is doing lovely dots. Lovely dots. There they are, there they are, there. And big dots too. So 21 psi. It will belt out the paint, as you can see. Nice airbrush. So we'll put it back down to actually 19. See what that does. It's 21. Go back down to 19. Yep, very responsive. I'm hardly moving that needle, and I get paint every time with a mere twitch of the trigger. Very nice lines. So as well as I could airbrush one of those loco trucks with this, and I could also use it for weathering. It's really lovely airbrush. Probably work even better once it's been used a little while. Very nice. Okay, so that is I think I'll put the light back on. I think it was better with the light actually. Let's just put it there. Yeah, that's better. Sorry about that. Anyway, so that is the Airgoo Phantom. Is it better with the light on? Yeah. You can't see those dots, I don't think. They are very small. And you can stand off the paper here. It doesn't give off a lot of air. Not a lot of air coming through needle and nozzle, so which makes it excellent for the detail work. You can get paint gradients with this. Very nice. Nice airbrush. Sounds nice. Sounds good. Very happy with that one. And of course, it looks cool. That's actually needs tighten up a bit more so you can see the 03 markings on the back there. Okay, right, let's clean it before we move on to one other airbrush. Now I have a fairly easy way of cleaning airbrushes, and that is with distilled water, usually with a bit of washing up liquid in, and hot. Put it in a microwave, but can't do that today. So fill it up with water, blast it through, he says. Turn up the pressure to full, I think. Get that out of the way. Okay, bit of bubble back. Oh, I mustn't bubble back. Okay, there's not been much ink in there, so that's pretty clean, really. And we got my little doodah. So what I do is just wet the end of the cotton bud, keep the needle pulled back so you don't damage it, and just clean the pinch top there. Okay, little swipe of the needle. Okay, another blast, empty out, and then this is my homemade acrylic cleaner, which is IPA, winter grade windscreen fluid and distilled water in equal parts. About a third of each in a 200ml cup. So blast that through, just to frighten any other paint that might be in there. Bit of that pressure. I mean, that is pretty clean, as you can see. You can see that's clean. But what I do then, get rid of the excess in there. Empty her out. Have a look at the needle. So there shouldn't be any ink on that at all. Look at that. Oh, you can't see it, but it's actually spotless needle. Okay, so pop that back in, just pull that back out, check the nozzle, clean, clean. Okie dokie. Put that back in there. I have withdrawn the needle, hopefully right back, so it doesn't interfere with the nozzle. Okie dokie. Put that back in. I think we'll do one more squidge with the just pull the needle back a little bit and then blast. Put the needle back in. Double insurance there, that's now empty. Okay, move the needle back for storage. Loosen off the nozzle cap, and she's ready. She's ready for next time. Actually, that's clean enough. Obviously, it takes a little bit longer if I've used acrylic paint, but it's the same principle for cleaning, really. So that's that one. Pop that over there for a sec. Now I've got one other cool airbrush to do this in this session, and that is, I've always been a fan of a certain American manufacturer of airbrushes, and you can see that this one, those that are used to airbrush, you can see that this is made by Badger, although it's badged as an Aircobra, which is sold by MIG. Okay, but as you can see, it's got the Badger finger support, and it's got the old plastic cup lid, and it's got the fixed cup, which I like because it's much easier to clean, really, over time. It's also got a self-centering nozzle, patented by Badger, and this airbrush, although it's called an Aircobra, it's actually based on the Badger Omni 4000, okay, which didn't have the back end gold coloured like this, and that is a sexy looking airbrush, I think. Very nice airbrush. Now, why do I like it so much? Well, because it's self-centering brass nozzle. There's no PTFE seal needed that end, so you've got no PTFE seals in the paint contact areas. You've got no PTFE seal at the bottom of the cup because you don't need one. The only seal that you've got that's PTFE that's needed is the needle bearing in there, which in this one is removable, and it's also adjustable as it gets less effective over time. It comes with a reversible needle cap, which you can turn round, which I will do on this one. Turn it round. He says, do it much easier when you ain't got on the video. Okay, and then it becomes a bullet nozzle, really, as I call it, and that does expose the needle. The needle on this, well, the product is Badger's a 0.3. Other modelers think it's 0.35. I think the needle looks like a 0.5. However, with this airbrush, it's known as a progressive 0.35 needle, because the needle, which I don't know whether you'll be able to see, is what's called a dual taper needle, which I don't think you can see, but basically it comes with, write it down on here. No, you won't. I'll get a piece of paper be a bit civilised. Okay, dual taper needle. If that's the end of the nozzle, or the nozzle. That's the end of the nozzle. Okay, and the dual taper needle tends to look like that. Okay, I'm going to put a line there. Okay, that is a dual taper needle. Okay, now the first part of the taper there is only about half a millimeter long out of you. In fact, it might even be less than that. So if you pull back tiny amount on the airbrush trigger, you can produce, if your paint is thin enough, detail line just the same as an 0.2 needle. After that, if you slowly pull back, you get the benefit of the second taper, which will gradually blast up to a 0.35 or what. I mean, this spray's like a 0.5. Okay, so it actually does away with you having to have an airbrushes with different needle sizes. This will go from super detail right up to priming a model. So it's one of my favourite airbrushes, and I think that dual taper needle is patented by Badger, and I think it was produced on the first airbrush I had when I upgraded for them, was the Badger Anthem, which is a siphon feed, and that had a dual taper needle, but the needle was 0.75, massive great beast, but it was still capable of a bit of detail. But I found that 0.7 floods the models too much. So anyway, that's what a dual taper is, and this one has got one. Its ability to atomize paint is top notch. It's one of the best airbrushes out there. You cannot beat it. So we will put the said mix in. If I can just park the airbrush over there, I've got to be careful because the needle cap is off. In fact, at this moment in time, oh yeah, because I put it on the front. Right, I'm being a bit of an elderly brain at the moment, so I'll just get my taper ready. I don't know whether you'll be able to see this better on this one. We'll try it, but anyway, this is, what's it set at? We'll go on 2, 3, so 19 psi. It will go lower than that, but we do 19 psi. So let me just blast that paint through. So as you can see, I'm just pulling back a tiny amount on that 0.35, and that is atomizing paint very well, just like the air goo. But if I get nearer the paper, okay, and just pull back the tiniest amount, I don't think you can see that, can you? But that is 0.2 detail line, that is. Okay, so hence the dual taper. Okay, so you can stand off from the paper and do quite a fine line. As well, I'm at least 4 or 5 millimeters off the paper, and I'm still doing, with my shaky hand, fine lines. Okay, can you see that? Possibly not. Excellent airbrush. Okay, but of course I can also go from fine lines to fine until I pull right back and get the full blast of a 0.5. That's emptied it. So that's how good this airbrush is. Excellent product. I think we'll call that quits because it gets boring if I do too much work on that. So again, cleaning in the same way. Water, blast through, turn the air pressure up, PSI up rather. So lovely airbrush, love it to bits. Let me just fill up with a bit of, actually no, I won't, I'll fill up with my cleaner this time. Pull back on the needle so as not to damage that. Wipe the front and then just wipe the needle, get the needle off. Should really use a paintbrush really, but I won't get it today. Okay, we will just, now this is not a chrome finish on this airbrush, it's hardware in nickel, and you find that if you use different paints like I do, solvent paints, with Iwata brushes and probably gallery, all the chrome brushes, the chrome comes off after a while in there, but the nickel finish doesn't happen so much with the nickel finish, and it lasts longer. What are the disadvantages with this brush? Well, I mean, you have got a black rubber seal on the outside, but if you don't, that will last a fair while. It's made by Badger, so I tend to use sealant on the threads underneath, because I don't want, it does come with a wrench to tighten that up, and I don't like using wrenches on any of these. Finger tight is for me, and you need to put sealant on the threads to stop the tiny amount of air leak that you sometimes get. And let's not get too snobby, folks, because even Iwata airbrushes leak air if you don't use sealant on them. So anyway, other disadvantage, spares can be awkward. Now, just to say that, as I've said, this is made by Badger, and by the Spanish company MIG, which asked Badger to do this lovely sexy rear end. It's got a needle limiter here, which I use. I'm not like you macho airbrushes that don't use needle limiters. If I only want to produce if I want to reduce the needle to maybe a 0.2 or 0.3 air angle of spray, you can do it by using this, and then you don't, if you're an elderly person like I am, don't accidentally with this dual taper spray too much paint on your model. So I use that as my little guard. I didn't on this time, but I also use the cap, because if you're using acrylics, you need to put the paint cap on, because the paint cap will stop the drying of the paint in the cup, makes cleaning easier. And it also, for me, stops me jerking the airbrush and spilling paint all over the model. But getting spare parts for these can be awkward. At the moment, MIG's website has got the needles and the nozzles all out of stock. You can, there's a company called Airbrushing Direct, which is a French company, and they do some MIG parts. But there is another little trick, because he says, there it is, you can buy the same version of this airbrush, but it's badged in the UK as the Ultimate Apex. I won't set this one up because they're exactly the same. The needle in this one is exactly the same, it's 0.35. I've put the Vega nozzle air cap on the end because it looks cool, and I've also upgraded and put what I call Badger's medium roller because it's just so super comfortable. Now, Ultimate UMP, Ultimate Model Products, it's an English company. They've asked Badger to produce the Omni 4000 as their Ultimate Apex. The needle and nozzles are identical, so you can buy the needle and nozzles from the Apex. They'll fit the Aircobra. They are interchangeable. So lovely airbrush, smooth, easy finger control here. And the other benefit is for these airbrushes and the air goo, is there's minimum drop or minimum pressure for compressing the trigger. some airbrushes, which I'll show you, you've got about 3mm movement, and I find that tiring to hold that down while you're spraying. But these, typical Badger, very small, and the response on these airbrushes is instant. You just have to tweak, and you've got to get paint coming out the front. Lovely airbrushes. I think they look cool. Okay, so that is some sort of neat tricks on there. Let me just check the cleanliness of the needle before I pack it in for the day. So hopefully, let's empty that out so it'll leak into the airbrush. Okay, just take that out. I don't think that's that clean actually. Let's just have a little look. See. There was a little bit of ink on that. A little bit of ink on that. So we'll put it in and we'll just flush through a bit more. I think what I didn't do is I didn't do the bubble back enough. It's still quite clean really. Okay, just give it a little check in there. I think that's okay actually. On the last bit of spray, pull the needle back, and then we should have a nice clean needle now. Yeah, that's much better. Much better. And that is ready for the next time I use the airbrush. I think I've said before, you don't need to strip an airbrush down to its underpants every time you finished it. If you use the right equipment, flush it through, make sure your needle's clean, it'll be ready to use next time. So I'll just get rid of anything there, pull that back, protect it, and that is the Aircobra made by Badger. Brilliant little airbrush, very cool. We'll put the needle cap back on the way around again, because that does actually give a bit of protection for the needle tip. Okay, lovely airbrush, lovely, love it. Okay, so I think that's it for the day, folks, because I think this video's gone on long enough. The next, that's my in the alphabetical order. that's my A airbrushes. So that's Airgoo, Aircobra, and I showed you the Apex. I think the cost of this, I got this one for £134, which they still go at if you can find them. And I've also seen one this week for 156, which is a bit pricey really. And the Airgoo, as I said, goes for $79.99. I think they're brilliant airbrushes. I love the feel of them. They're easy for an old age pensioner, an elderly man who's 75 using an airbrush. So the next one I'm going to do is actually, what am I going to do? I'm probably going to do, I don't think I'll go back to Badger. The next one that I think is cool is some of the gallery products, so I'll do that next, and then I'll be doing my good looking H&S, and then I'll end up with my Iwata airbrush, and those are the main ones that I've got that I think are cool looking airbrushes. So enough for now, and see you again.